The wind howled across the scarred plains of Alaris Prime, sweeping ash and ice through the jagged remains of what had once been a fortress. Buried beneath twisted alloy and shattered stone lay a broken form, massive, pale, and unmoving. Blood, blackened by exposure and laced with faint luminescence, seeped from deep lacerations along its flanks. Shards of plasma-forged metal pierced its body like grotesque thorns. Its breathing was shallow, rhythmic only because of ancient biology too stubborn to stop. The dragon had once soared above worlds. Now it waited for death in the silence of ruin. It had fought its last battle. There was no anger in its mind, no fear, only a vast and ancient weariness. Its kind had vanished long ago. Betrayed, dissected, forgotten. It had wandered alone for decades, escaping laboratories, surviving purges. It carried more scars inside than outside, and now, finally, it would rest. Each heartbeat was an effort, each breath a reluctant debt it paid to a life that had outlasted its meaning. Dignity, it told itself. There was dignity in dying far from the eyes of those who had hunted it. Dignity in fading into legend. Through the haze of blood loss, flickers of memory came. Cities once shaded beneath its wings. Children laughing as they climbed its tail. A pact forged between beast and civilization, broken long before the last city burned. It had guarded them, and they had torn it down when fear outweighed gratitude. All that remained was the pain, the loss etched deep into muscle and memory. Let the cold finish the work the weapons had started. Let the snow bury what history had erased. But something shifted. The dragon's eye, half crusted with frost, twitched open. There was movement. Footsteps, light, cautious. Not the march of soldiers. Not the scrape of looters. A single presence drawing closer? Then a warmth pressed against its wound. It recoiled, but the voice that followed didn't carry command. It was quiet. Steady. Human. You're not dying today. Not if I can help it. The words were absurd. A whisper against the roar of inevitability. The dragon's thoughts, muddled and scattered, tried to interpret the voice. Female. Young. Fragile. She must not have seen what it was. Or perhaps she had, and didn't care. It tried to speak, but its throat cracked only a broken rasp. She didn't flinch. Gentle pressure returned, this time accompanied by the hiss of a stim injector. The dragon's limbs twitched as warmth spread through its body. Not enough to heal. Just enough to delay death. Why would she waste supplies on it? She murmured again, her voice soft but grounded with a strange stubbornness. I don't care what you are. I'm not leaving anyone to die. The dragon blinked slowly. Had it heard that right? Compassion? For it? She moved with focus, patching tissue with sealant, extracting shrapnel with trembling hands. There was no panic, just grim efficiency. And still, she spoke, not in pleasantries, but in plain truths. She spoke of survival. Of comrades lost. Of isolation in war zones. Her tone didn't waver, even when blood soaked through her gloves. Each word was an anchor pulling the dragon back from the dark. The creature tried again to lift its head. Pain lanced through its skull. But the woman's hands were there, steadying, not restraining. She was no soldier. Not in the traditional sense. She didn't demand compliance. She offered care. It felt something it hadn't in decades, confusion. This didn't make sense. Her kind had declared its kind extinct. The human fleets had watched the last sky-blood nests burn. And yet here she was, alone, unarmed, bleeding from her own injuries, refusing to let it die. She applied pressure to its neck wound, whispered apologies for the pain, and moved to the next. Her voice, though quiet, held authority. But not over the dragon, instead over despair. The cold still pressed in. But it no longer felt absolute. The dragon's mind, blurred and fragmented, latched onto her presence. Her heartbeat was erratic but strong. Her hands shook but never hesitated. And her eyes, though the dragon could barely make them out, held no fear. Its thoughts tumbled. Why her? Why here? Was this mercy, or madness? But before it could find the answers, exhaustion pulled it back under. As darkness closed in, the last thing it felt was the touch of warmth that refused to abandon it. Not divine. Not mythical. Just human. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the dragon wondered if death could wait. The cold bit through her armor, but Ava Renner ignored it. She crouched beside the massive body, working fast. Every second mattered. The creature's vitals were erratic, fading too fast. She didn't have enough supplies, didn't even know its biology, but that didn't stop her. Her fingers moved from muscle memory, sterilize, seal, stabilize. Improvisation was her second nature now. She didn't expect anyone to understand why she stopped. The mission was over. The evac window missed. Her squad was gone. The creature should have been a threat, a relic better left untouched. But that wasn't what she saw when she found it, bleeding, eyes dull, breath shallow. She saw pain. That was enough. Every training module, every protocol said to avoid interference with alien species of unknown classification. Especially apex-class organisms. This thing wasn't in any database, but legends whispered about albino dragons and their extinction. It wasn't supposed to exist. Yet here it was, dying alone, forgotten. And Ava didn't walk away. The med scanner refused to give clear readings. Foreign tissue patterns, regenerative platelets, an unstable energy signature beneath the ribcage. Nothing matched known anatomy. It didn't matter. She focused on stopping the hemorrhaging, clamping a ruptured artery, injecting a wide-spectrum coagulant designed for multi-species compatibility. It was a gamble. Everything she was doing was a gamble. She paused to wipe blood from her visor. The face beneath it was drawn, dark circles under sleepless eyes, lips cracked from dehydration. Her last ration had been 2 days ago. Still, she kept going. Not because she thought she could save the creature, but because not trying felt worse. She spoke while working, not for it, but for herself. The silence out here had been eating at her. You picked a hell of a place to fall, you know that? Her voice was low, steady. No one's coming. Just us. She stitched a torn muscle fiber with adaptive thread, normally used for battlefield skin grafts. It clung, resisted, then began meshing. A good sign. She reached for another vial, this one containing engineered stem cells designed to accelerate neural reconnection in humanoid soldiers. Would it work on something like this? No clue. She administered it anyway, whispering, "Better than nothing." The creature stirred, just slightly. Its eyelid twitched. She froze. For a moment, she expected a last burst of fire, a claw to the throat, but none came. Its breathing deepened instead. Still labored, but stronger. Ava leaned back, taking a moment to breathe. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear. From the weight of what she'd decided to do. This wasn't an assignment. No one had ordered this. She chose it. Just like she'd chosen to stay behind when her squad fell back. She remembered her brother, obsessed with dragons as a child, always drawing wings, always asking why humans feared what they didn't understand. He died during a treaty mission gone wrong. The report called it friendly fire. She never believed that. He would have tried to help someone he wasn't supposed to. Just like she was doing now. It wasn't about heroism. She wasn't here to change history or earn medals. She didn't even know if she'd live to see another sunrise. But leaving this creature to die felt wrong in a way she couldn't explain. Suffering was suffering. Species didn't matter. She ran diagnostics again, made notes for further treatment. She'd need to scavenge a functioning Regencore to stabilize the lower spine. Maybe the wrecked evac shuttle 3 clicks south still had one. Risky, but worth it. Before leaving, she secured the shelter, used camo netting to mask thermal signatures, rigged motion detectors. She wasn't naive, other teams would come. They'd see the dragon as a threat or a prize. Either way, they'd kill it. She had to move fast. She hesitated before stepping away, then knelt one more time beside the creature. She reached out, placing her gloved hand gently against its scaled brow. It felt warmer now. Alive. I don't know your name. I don't even know if you'll make it through the night. But I'm not letting you die alone. Not while I'm still breathing. The creature didn't respond, but she didn't expect it to. It had been ready to give up. She recognized that look. She'd seen it in mirrors. But she wasn't done fighting. Not yet. She turned and walked into the snow. Behind her, a spark of breath curled from the dragon's nostrils. The fire inside him had not gone out. Not fully. Not yet. Calith awoke to the scent of sterilized gauze and the sound of a human's slow, steady breathing. The pain was still there, but dulled, no longer screaming. He could feel warmth stitched through his veins, foreign, artificial, but effective. Movement returned, not with force, but flickers of control. His left wing twitched. A reflex. Ava had done something right. The makeshift shelter was crude, but deliberate. Someone had studied him, not as a curiosity, not as a weapon, but as a patient. His wounds had been treated with a mixture of human and alien technology, poorly matched, but functional. Field repairs. Nothing elegant, but enough to keep his heart beating. Ava sat nearby, leaning against a scorched pillar, half awake. She looked like she'd fought 10 battles and lost every one, but she was alive, breathing, and still watching him like her presence mattered. He could sense the exhaustion clinging to her skin, but also a strange calm. She had no idea what he was, but still chose to stay. He spoke, voice hoarse and low, the ancient language forming slowly through damaged vocal cords. Why? She blinked, startled not by the voice but by its clarity. Her translator flickered on, lagging. Because someone had to. He couldn't comprehend the logic. Not fully. Not after what he'd seen. Ava wasn't a soldier anymore. She was surviving. She'd been abandoned, just like him. And still, she found a reason to care. That made no sense. She began checking his dressings again. The gash beneath his rib was improving. The internal damage less so. Without access to proper resources, he wouldn't regain full strength for weeks. But something was different now. He wanted to recover. That was new. Ava filled the silence with talk. Not chatter, just short fragments. What Earth looked like, the taste of real rain, how war made people forget themselves. She wasn't trying to bond. She was grounding herself. Keeping sane. Still, he listened. Each word painted a life far from the ashes of this dead world. A life worth more than orders and battles. She repaired one of his damaged stabilizers using parts from a scout drone, modifying connectors to mimic nerve relay signals. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. Crude innovation. Human stubbornness. And something more, compassion tied to ingenuity. One night she returned with a cracked power core clutched to her chest. Her hands were burned, bloodied, but she was smiling. Got what we need, she said like it was just another errand. She didn't talk about how close she came to dying. She just handed him the tools and kept going. In those long, painful hours of fusion repair, Kalis studied her. Not her body, her mind. The precision. The defiance. She never once asked for gratitude. She didn't even expect survival. She just refused to give up. And every act, every gesture told him what he needed to know. She was exactly the opposite of the galaxy he'd known. The dragon started speaking more, using her words slowly. His name. Fragments of history. She listened, asked questions, recorded his responses for translation. He told her about the fire sanctuaries, the betrayal of the Accord, the poison that burned through the sky nests. She didn't flinch at the horror. She just nodded, like she already carried her own version of it. They built something unspoken. Not trust in the traditional sense. It was more primal. Two survivors with no reason to hope, still choosing to fight for something neither of them fully understood. She was human, fragile, mortal. He was the last of a species built for myth and war. But none of that mattered when the alarms triggered. The first scout drones had appeared in orbit, AI-controlled, scanning for anomalous signals. Ava cursed herself for not disabling her field transmissions sooner. They had days, maybe hours, before a strike team followed. There would be no negotiation. Kalith was an unknown entity. That meant termination. They didn't argue. No dramatic speeches. Ava simply began reinforcing the shelter. Kalith assisted, even in pain. They planted traps, rerouted heat signals, mapped fallback points. She taught him human signals. He showed her psychic markers used to disorient enemies. It wasn't a perfect defense, but it was theirs. During a break, she leaned against him, exhausted, eyes shut but not asleep. He asked her, "Why me?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because you didn't ask anyone to save you. That's why I had to." In that moment, Kalith understood. She didn't save him to change history. She saved him because it was the only thing left that made her feel human. And now, he wasn't just alive, he had a reason to stay that way. The silence broke with a distant tremor, barely noticeable at first, but Ava caught it. Her hand instinctively reached for her scanner, and the reading confirmed what she already feared: multiple incoming signatures, closing fast. Not drones this time. Boots. Heavy. Organized. Not a scouting party. A cleanup unit. She didn't panic. She assessed. 4 hours, maybe less. Their heat masking wouldn't hold against direct scans, and their location had already been pinged. She turned to Kalith. His recovery was stable but incomplete. He could stand now, partially extend his wings, but flight remained out of reach. Combat would hurt him, maybe kill him, but there was no time left. They prepared. Ava armed herself with a salvage plasma cutter, a compact EMP charge, and the last remaining kinetic mines. She rewired the shelter's power core into a directed pulse node, a crude defense wall. Kalith drew power from the cracked stabilizer core Ava had fused to his spine, enough to reignite a small reserve of internal fire. It wouldn't last. But it didn't need to. It just had to be enough. The first mercenary dropped in fast and silent, cloaked until Ava's mind burst through the snow, shredding the cover. She moved without hesitation, slicing through the exposed limb before a second attacker appeared. They weren't just here to kill, they were collecting evidence. Proof. Someone wanted Kalith intact. That made them dangerous in a different way. Kalith struck from above, his claws slamming down into the frozen terrain, sending 2 more attackers sprawling. His breath was weak, but it scorched metal enough to warp targeting systems. Ava took advantage of the distraction, pushing into the open, her EMP charge detonating in midair and disrupting the squad's comms. She fought like someone with nothing left to lose. Fast. Precise. Every move was a calculation: cover to strike, strike to disable. Her arm was grazed by a projectile, slicing through muscle, but she didn't pause. Pain was secondary. Kalith was the priority. They fought together, not with practiced coordination, but instinctive timing born from days of quiet survival. When Ava dropped behind a low ridge, Kalith swept the high ground. When he stumbled, she covered his flank. Her voice came through the static, short commands sharp and clear. No fear. Only resolve. But they were outnumbered, and fatigue set in fast. Ava took a hit to the side, her ribs crunching under the impact. She kept moving. Blood soaked through her layers, warmth fading. Her steps slowed, but her aim stayed true. She dragged herself behind cover, fired into exposed joints, disabled movement systems. Each shot bought seconds. Kalith's body was breaking again. One wing refused to move. The stabilizer cracked under stress, and his fire flickered out. Still, he pushed forward, slamming his body into armored suits, tearing through reinforced plating with raw force. He shielded Ava without hesitation, placing himself between her and incoming fire. Then came the moment that shifted everything. One of the lead mercenaries, cloaked, rose behind Ava. She didn't see it. Kalith did. But he was too far. She turned too late. The plasma round struck her shoulder, spun her to the ground. Her weapon skidded across the ice. The pain paralyzed her. She looked up as the enemy raised his weapon again. Kalith roared. It wasn't loud, it was pure. Energy poured from his core, cracking the air. His entire frame ignited, not with fire, but with memory. Ancestral power long dormant surged through his bones. His eyes burned white. Scars along his body began to glow. The air around him distorted. He moved fast, too fast for pain to matter, and struck with finality. The mercenary dissolved beneath claws wreathed in light. Calith collapsed moments later, breath ragged, body shaking, but he didn't fall. Not yet. Ava tried to rise. Her body resisted, but she dragged herself to him. Blood ran down her neck. Her vision blurred. She couldn't speak. She didn't need to. He lowered his head to her, his breath warm on her face. In a language older than their war, older than her species, he whispered his vow. She had saved his life. He would not let her die here. He curled around her, shielding her battered form with the last of his strength, and waited, ready for whatever came next. The wind was different now, warmer, carrying no ash. Ava stirred beneath layers of woven cloth she didn't recognize, her skin tingling from the unfamiliar energy flowing through her veins. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the glow that lit the cavern around her in soft hues of violet and gold. The air smelled like ozone and old stone. She wasn't on Alaris Prime anymore. Her body didn't ache the same way. Pain still existed, but it was distant, almost dulled, like her wounds had been closed in ways human medicine couldn't achieve. She sat up carefully, eyes adjusting to bioluminescent roots winding along the walls. In the center of the chamber, Kayla stood upright, wings extended, his scales no longer dulled by soot or blood. They shimmered now, pale silver threaded with faint crimson where injuries had once been. He noticed her movement, and turned without words, lowering his head. The bond between them had changed. No longer tethered by necessity or pain, it felt balanced now, rooted in something chosen. She didn't ask where they were. She didn't need to. His memories were clearer to her than spoken explanation. The sanctum of his ancestors, hidden beneath layers of old code, unreachable to those who didn't carry their blood. Her recovery hadn't been quick. He had flown her here with strength he didn't know he still possessed, guided by instincts buried deep in his genetics. The healing structures embedded in this forgotten place responded to both of them, reactivated by proximity, by need, maybe even by hope. Neither of them fully understood how it worked, only that it had. She rose to her feet, steady but slower than before. Her arm, once torn open, now bore a soft glow beneath the skin. Not scar tissue. Not synthetic. Something in between. A result of exposure to whatever the sanctum used to repair. She touched it, eyes narrowing slightly, then let her hand fall. Survival had changed them both. Calith began speaking, his voice steadier now, deeper, without the tremor of pain. He told her what the sanctum had revealed, old archives buried in crystal cores, histories long erased from galactic records. His species hadn't simply died out. They had been hunted, not for threat but for power. Their bones powered reactors. Their blood synthesized into mind control agents. Entire empires built themselves on the destruction of his kind. Ava listened without interruption. Her anger didn't need to be voiced. She had seen the cycle before. Different targets. Same cruelty. But something else stirred within her, resolve. She hadn't survived to return home and forget. She hadn't fought just to escape. There were others like Calith, perhaps not dragons, but remnants, refugees, discarded weapons the galaxy pretended never existed. She couldn't walk away now. Calith read her thoughts before she spoke. He didn't resist the direction of her mind. It matched his own. The galaxy needed a reminder, not of fear or dominance, but of what they tried to erase. He wasn't the last flame anymore. Not truly. She had reignited what was meant to be lost. Words spread faster than they anticipated. Ava's emergency transmissions, intercepted during the battle, had been copied and leaked. Footage of her tending to Calith's wounds, of them fighting side by side, now cycled through underground networks across systems. Some dismissed it as fabrication. Others believed. A few reached out, quietly, risking retribution just to ask one thing: how? Ava didn't respond directly. She didn't need to. Her actions would speak louder. She and Caliph began moving between hidden sectors, salvaging, searching, rescuing. Broken things, abandoned lives. A forgotten AI core. A hybrid child denied asylum. An exiled soldier implanted with unstable tech. They took them all in. Not as followers. As survivors who deserved more. Caliph flew again, not in rage but in purpose. His body carried old power, but his will was shaped by something human. He no longer hid. And Ava no longer felt alone. Their bond wasn't one of species or duty. It was forged in choice, in persistence, in the decision to create something better than the world that tried to end them. As they rose above the horizon of a reborn world, Ava looked down at what once was a battlefield and now grew green again. She said nothing, only tightened her grip along Caliph's back. He didn't ask where they were going next. He already knew. The sky, once empty, now carried wings again. And this time, it carried hope.